The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall.
All right, now I want to vomit at this point because I know what students are going to write. They're going to write that we must always try. Yes. It doesn't matter if you fail. You can reach for the stars and then you fall on a star. What if you reach for the moon? Please, that's going to be what every other child is writing. So what kind of essay are you going to write?
A
philosophical essay. Now, what is philosophy?
So
it's like ideas, yeah, it's your thoughts. Now, a lot of students say, but my thoughts are sincere, my thoughts are genuine. But in a way they're not, because they're the thoughts that everybody shares. And we know about making an effort. All these motivational speakers and people in business, what do they keep telling us? The worst thing you can do is not to start a business and fail, but never to start a business. I mean, this idea, it's great, but it's been said over and over and over and over again. Do you really want to write it? And I can see thousands of essays on this topic, and they're all exactly the same. So what would I do with it? I would do either what we discussed before. So let's say 3 or 4 examples of when I personally have fallen and how I have got up again. But it might start to sound a bit too, me, aren't I wonderful, aren't I fantastic? So I've got to be careful of that. But that's what I would do, or one example. And again, Thandeka, I don't know what's going through your mind. The one example that I could use of falling and getting up is having cancer.
Okay.
Because you start with the first blow of being told that you've got a third stage, high grade malignant tumor. It's ghastly. And you've got to get over that. And then you've got the surgery, you get over that. And then there's the chemotherapy, and you get over that. And then there's the radiation, and you get over that. So I could do a whole thing on this. Or you could have more than one example. So can you share anything with us about when you personally have fallen, but you got up again?
I think the most recent one was with my studies, where I had qualified to go to university, but there was no money to pay for it. So the falling was in the being financially excluded, and the rising was having to source the funding.
Yeah, and in fact, that to me could even be one whole essay, because there is the building that you want to go and study in. Here are you with your mortarboard off your head waiting to study. And I think you probably find that experience, there've got to be lots of blows before you managed, and you're now doing your studies and getting your assignments in. So Thandeka's could probably be a whole essay rather than one. And yes, people, you might feel I'm writing too much about how good I am, but in a way you are good. You know, you're not saying I'm better than you. You're just saying I was knocked down and I got up, and let me share this with you. And my priest, he says that as South Africans, we are not sharing our stories enough. And I think that's true. We don't share our stories. Some of the most wonderful essays I ever read was one year they set the topic, and it was a long time ago. Do you remember when we had higher grade and standard grade?
Yes.
Oh, it was before her time. The higher grade children got My Father, My Hero, and the standard grade children got My Mother, My Hero. And I marked standard grade that year. Oh, those essays. Did I learn about black women? These children wrote about their mothers, and they wrote so powerfully. Yes, there were some children who just wrote, she was always there for me. She made sandwiches. She, I don't know, gave me a warm bowl of soup. Those were awful. But the rest of them, they were you suddenly thought, you strike the woman, you strike the rock in this country. Wow, did I have, and I enjoyed them. And were all of them brilliantly written in terms of spelling and punctuation and grammar? No, they weren't. But I just mark the content as high as possible. I don't know if we're going to have time to look at the rubric. I really would like to do that. But remember, there's a mark for your content, and there's a mark for your language use in a sort of spelling, punctuation, grammar, and so on. And then there's structure and language in terms of details. You can be marked really, really high here and get a kind of middle of the road kind of essay. But you know, when you're writing about something you care about, it's amazing how the writing lifts. So yes, I marked those essays really high on content, and I waited, you know, there's a senior marker, and I waited for the senior markers to see if they're going to throw these essays back at me. I did not get one essay back. They were wonderful to say, oh, you've marked it too high, take it down. Because they were so real, they were so genuine, and they wrote about their mother. So this, for me, I'm remembering all those fabulous essays. You could actually write about my mother. What is your mother overcome? Do you respect and admire your mother? And I'm thinking of one of my matrics. His mom is a single mom, and he loves and respects his mom. He talks to her about everything, all the kind of male things he does with his mom. And I can imagine he would write, because he's written for me about his mom and his relationship with his mom and the problems she's had to overcome and to make sure that he's in matric now. And that would be the most fabulous essay. So if you go back to that topic, don't write generalizations. Would you like just to explain what a generalization is?
So a generalization is something where it should apply for a lot of people or for everyone. So just what we're supposed to already know. So you're not being specific, but you're just making it all across the board.
Yeah. So you used such an important word, be specific. Please just explain that further, because it's so important.
So when you are being specific, you really are giving more information on the one thing that you are talking about. So you're giving enough detail. So being specific, you're giving enough detail for people to truly understand what it is. And it also just shows your own understanding of what you're talking about. Because when we start to generalize, we just touch a bit on here and there because we're not very sure of what we're talking about. But when you're being specific, you're able to provide details on that one thing.